You are being systematically robbed at the tire counter, and it has absolutely nothing to do with the brand of rubber you buy. Most drivers are throwing away up to 50% of their tire life, literally handing thousands of hard-earned dollars back to the manufacturers, all because of a massive industry silence. The tire industry makes its billions on premature replacement, not on durability. They want you back in the bay every 2 years, smiling while you swipe your card for another set of 4. They frame it as normal wear and tear. They tell you it is just the cost of driving a heavy vehicle. It is a lie. On March 4th, 2025, a regular customer of mine pulled his truck into my bay. It was a clean Tacoma, well-maintained, the kind of truck that should easily see 300,000 miles without breaking a sweat. But his tires were completely finished, not worn out evenly, finished. He had only put 26,000 miles on a set of premium, top-tier rubber that carried a rock-solid 60,000-mile manufacturer warranty. The outer edges of the front tires were shaved down completely flat to the wear bars, while the center of the tread still looked almost brand new. He was not just angry, he was insulted. He had paid top dollar for the expensive ones, the exact tires the showroom salesman swore would outlast the ownership of the truck itself. And here they were, legally dead in under 24 months. He climbed out of the cab, looked at the ruined rubber, looked at me, and asked the one question I have heard 1,000 times over my decades turning wrenches on the shop floor. Are tires just garbage now, or is something fundamentally wrong with my truck? Today, I am exposing the hidden truth. I am breaking down the everyday habits that are quietly destroying your tires at double the normal rate, and why almost none of them have a single thing to do with the quality of the tire itself. Because here is the exact reality I laid out for him in the bay that morning, and it is the one thing no high-volume tire shop will ever admit to your face. There was absolutely nothing wrong with those premium tires. There was nothing mechanically broken on his truck either. The suspension was straight, the alignment parts were tight, and the rubber was high grade. Those tires died early because of 5 small, invisible habits repeated every single day, actions he never even realized were destructive. And once I walked him through the physical evidence on his own vehicle, his entire face changed. It was not relief. It was the sudden, painful realization of exactly how many thousands of dollars he had thrown directly into the scrap pile over the years, paying full retail price each time while the real root causes went completely untouched. I have spent over 2 decades in the workshop, and I can tell you with absolute certainty that tires are the single most misunderstood component on any modern vehicle. Most people treat them exactly like sneakers. You buy them, you run them until they look bald, you toss them, and you assume that is just the natural tax of the road. But tires are not the problem. Tires are the ultimate forensic evidence. Every single worn-out tire that gets unbolted in a shop is a full, unedited confession written in rubber. If you possess the insider knowledge required to read the tread, it will tell you exactly what you have been doing wrong behind the wheel and inside the garage. The tread simply does not lie. It keeps a permanent physical record of every single mile, every poor habit, and every single maintenance item you chose to ignore. Here is the uncomfortable truth that the big chains will never put on an invoice. The tire ecosystem is fundamentally designed around consumption. A tire is a consumable asset, and the faster you consume it, the more profitable the system becomes. When you roll into a local shop with a set of tires that died at half their expected lifespan, the service writer has zero financial incentive to pull you aside and explain why it happened. Their only job is to sell you 4 more, mount them, torque the lugs, smile, and wave you out the door. They will not tell you that the brand new set you just financed is going to meet the exact same premature death for the exact same reasons. The cause was never the rubber compound. The cause was a daily pattern. Let us break down the specific patterns that destroy tires faster than anything else on the road today. I see these exact failures wrecking trucks and SUVs daily. Tacomas, Tundras, 4Runners, RAV4s, Highlanders, it does not matter. The physics remain completely identical. And if I am being completely honest with you from the start, most drivers on the road right now are actively guilty of at least 3 of these right now. Habit number 1 is treating your tire pressure as a set and forget metric. This is the absolute king of tire destruction. This single habit causes more shredded rubber and premature replacements than every other mechanical failure combined. Here is how the trap works. You fill your tires up once, maybe when you first purchase the vehicle or when you get a fresh set installed, and then you completely erase it from your mind. You assume that because there are no visible nails and no obvious leaks, the air stays put. But a tire is not a perfectly sealed glass jar. It is a porous structure that naturally loses roughly 1 to 2 pounds of air pressure every single month just through microscopic permeation through the rubber itself. It gets significantly worse when the seasons change. The laws of physics dictate that for every 10-degree drop in ambient outdoor temperature, your internal tire pressure drops by another full pound. If you fill your tires to perfection during a warm September afternoon, that exact same truck will be running dangerously underinflated by the time a cold December morning rolls around, even if you never drove a single mile. Now, look at what this lack of maintenance does to the physical structure of the tire. When a tire drops below its specified pressure, it loses its structural rigidity. The center of the tread actually bows inward, sinking away from the asphalt. Because the middle of the tire is no longer supporting the weight of the vehicle, the two outer shoulders are forced to take the entire load. They get slammed down into the pavement and are forced to do all the physical work of steering, braking, and accelerating. The outer edges scrub away to nothing in a matter of months, while the center of the tire remains thick, fat, and healthy. That is the exact visual signature I saw on that customer's Tacoma. Completely obliterated shoulders, framing a brand new center strip. Worse yet, underinflation causes massive internal heat buildup. When the sidewalls flex excessively due to low pressure, the rubber molecules rub against each other, generating extreme internal temperatures that cook the tire from the inside out, weakening the integrity of the casing long before the tread even wears down. Do not make the rookie mistake of trusting that little dashboard tire pressure monitoring system light to save your wallet. That dashboard light is not an early warning system designed to maximize your tire life. By federal safety design mandates, that light is an emergency indicator that typically will not even illuminate until your tire pressure has already plummeted 25% below the vehicle's factory specification. That means your tires can be running desperately low, wearing out at double the normal speed, destroying your fuel economy, and that dashboard light will remain completely dark. It is the exact equivalent of a home smoke detector that is programmed to only go off once. Half the house has already burned to the ground. By the time the vehicle warns you, the economic damage is already months old and completely permanent. The actual fix costs absolutely nothing but 5 minutes of your time. You must check your cold tire pressure at least once a month using a high-quality, dedicated handheld pressure gauge. And when you set that pressure, look at the yellow and white placard stamped directly inside your driver's side door jamb. Do not look at the maximum pressure number stamped on the sidewall of the tire itself. That sidewall number represents the absolute maximum pressure the tire can safely hold under maximum load capacity. It is not the optimal engineering specification for your specific truck. Confusing those two numbers is a massive tire killer all on its own. Habit number 2 is skipping your tire rotations, simply because the truck still feels fine to drive. Your front tires and your rear tires live in completely different worlds and perform radically different physical jobs. Up front, the tires are responsible for directing the mass of the vehicle. They take the brunt of every single cornering force. They carry the heavy weight of the engine block, and on most modern Toyotas, they are actively putting power down to the ground. Every single time you turn that steering wheel, the front tires are forcefully scrubbed sideways against the rough, abrasive surface of the asphalt. The rear tires, by contrast, live a much easier life. They mostly just follow along and roll in a straight line. Because of this extreme division of labor, the front tires wear down drastically faster and in completely different physical patterns than the rears. Regular tire rotation exists solely to combat this natural imbalance. By methodically moving the tires around the vehicle on a strict schedule, you systematically distribute that front-end punishment evenly across all 4 pieces of rubber. This ensures they all wear down at the exact same pace, allowing you to extract every single mile of value out of the entire set. When you skip this basic service, your front tires die at twice the speed of the rears. You find yourself forced to buy brand new tires, while the other half of your set still has thousands of miles of perfectly usable tread left on them. You are quite literally throwing away rubber that you already paid hard-earned money for. The golden rule is simple. Rotate your tires every 5,000 to 7,000 miles. The easiest way to manage this without tracking spreadsheets is to simply mandate a rotation at every single oil change. It is one of the least expensive maintenance items in the entire automotive ecosystem, yet it is consistently the most neglected by everyday drivers. People choose to skip it because the vehicle still drives straight and feels smooth down the highway. But a truck that drives fine is not the same thing as a truck that is wearing its rubber evenly. By the time you can actually feel an imbalance through the steering wheel or hear a hum down the road, the uneven wear pattern has already been permanently locked into the carcass of the rubber. And the damage cannot be undone. Habit number 3 is operating your vehicle like every single stoplight is a local drag race. This has nothing to do with a safety lecture. This is pure, unadulterated mechanical friction layout. A tire only interacts with the world through its contact patch, a small area of rubber about the size of a human palm pressing against the road. The only way it transfers power or stops momentum is through friction, and friction is the literal definition of material degradation. Every single time you accelerate aggressively from a dead stop, you are inducing microslip, grinding the rubber hard against the aggregate of the pavement and shaving off microscopic layers of tread. Every time you brake late and stab the pedal, you are forcing the contact patch to drag heavily under the weight of the vehicle, squaring off the leading edges of the tread blocks. And every single time you carry too much speed into a sharp corner, you are forcing the tire's shoulder to grind sideways across the road surface. Think of your tires exactly like a standard pencil eraser. If you press down with light, even pressure and glide it gently across a piece of paper, barely any material wears away. But if you mash that eraser down with maximum force and violently scrub it back and forth, it will disintegrate into useless dust in a matter of seconds. Your truck's tires behave in the exact same manner. Smooth, progressive inputs mean you are barely wearing the material. Aggressive inputs mean you are actively grinding it away. This exact issue is amplified heavily on modern trucks and mid-size SUVs. A Tundra or a 4Runner carries massive curb weight compared to a standard sedan, and mass multiplies every single physical force acting on the rubber. The exact same sharp corner that costs a light compact car a fractional amount of tread will cost a heavy, high-riding truck significantly more rubber because the lateral load is vastly higher. You do not have to drive like you are asleep behind the wheel, but managing your momentum, rolling into the throttle smoothly, and looking far enough down the road to allow for gradual braking zones will instantly add tens of thousands of miles back onto your tire lifespan. But as destructive as these driving and pressure habits are, they pale in comparison to what happens when you introduce mechanical forces that you cannot see or feel from the driver's seat. Forces that turn your tires into targets before you even realize you have hit anything at all. Here is the exact fix most dealerships and tire chains completely choose to look past, because it kills their recurring revenue model. Keeping your rubber alive does not require an engineering degree, and it does not require you to drop thousands of dollars on specialized racing upgrades. The solution is a systematic, zero-nonsense maintenance protocol that resets the physical forces acting on your truck's footprint. If you want to stop the bleeding and stop buying the same set of tires twice, you have to actively control the 3 mechanical variables that the system relies on you to ignore: precise spatial alignment, dynamic rotation patterns, and suspension stability. Let me walk you through the step-by-step execution of how we fix this permanently on the shop floor, starting with the single most critical mechanical adjustment your truck will ever need. Step 1. The true alignment correction. You cannot rely on a standard high-volume quick-toe alignment check that most shops throw in for $40. You need a comprehensive four-wheel thrust angle alignment executed by a technician who actually understands truck geometry, not just someone who waits for the machine screen to turn from red to green. When you bring your vehicle in, you must explicitly demand a printout of the initial and final alignment specs. Look directly at the toe-in and camber values. For heavyset trucks and SUVs, you want your toe set as close to the absolute center of the factory preferred specification as physically possible. If the technician leaves it at the very edge of the allowable tolerance limit, what we call in the green but leaning, that tire will still scrub out its inside edge over the course of 10,000 miles. This procedure requires a professional alignment T-rack, takes roughly 45 minutes to an hour, and should cost you anywhere between $80 to $120. It is the cheapest insurance policy you can ever buy for a $1,000 set of rubber. Do this every 12 months without exception, or the moment you feel your steering wheel sit even 1 degree off-center after a hard hit, steep 2. The cross-rotation protocol. If you own a rear-wheel drive or a part-time four-wheel drive truck, standard front-to-back tire swapping is not enough to counter the unique wear characteristics of the front suspension steering axis. You need to implement the modified cross-rotation pattern. When you lift the truck, the front tires move directly straight back to the rear axles. However, the rear tires must cross over when they move to the front, meaning the rear right tire moves to the front left position, and the rear left tire moves to the front right position. This directional crossover reverses the rotational forces acting on the tread blocks, shaving down any tiny feathered or sawtooth edges that began forming while the tire was pushing the vehicle from behind. You can execute this right in your own driveway in about 45 minutes using a standard floor jack, a set of robust jack stands, and a 21mm deep socket on a breaker bar. Always finish the job by using a calibrated mechanical torque wrench to tighten your lug nuts to exactly 83 foot-pounds for most mid-size setups, or 110 foot-pounds for full-size trucks. Never let a shop blast your lug nuts on with an unregulated pneumatic impact gun that warps brake rotors and distorts the wheel seating plane, creating a high-speed vibration that causes its own irregular tread wear. Step 3. The shock absorber field test. You must actively audit your suspension dampening before it carves waves into your tread. Do not wait for a shock absorber to start visibly leaking hydraulic oil before you decide to replace it. By the time the internal valving degrades and allows the tire to bounce uncontrollably like a basketball down the highway, the oil inside has often lost its viscosity without ever escaping the seal chamber. Perform the classic manual bounce test. Walk to each corner of the vehicle. Place your hands firmly on the metal structure of the frame or bumper and push down with your entire body weight 3 times in rapid succession. Then release it completely. A healthy, fully functional shock absorber will instantly damp the kinetic energy. The vehicle should return to its original ride height and stop moving immediately. If the vehicle oscillates, bounces, or rocks even 1 extra time after you let go, the internal valving is completely spent. Replacing a set of worn front struts or rear shocks takes about 2 to 3 hours in a standard shop environment. A pair of high-quality, heavy-duty replacement dampers will run you roughly $200 to $400 for the parts. It sounds like a real investment, but it instantly saves you from ruining a fresh set of tires via cupping within their first 15,000 miles. Let me give you a real-world example of this fix in action from right here on the shop floor. A few months ago, an enthusiast brought in a clean utility SUV. He was on his 3rd set of front tires in less than 4 years, completely frustrated, convinced he had a bent frame or a completely defective steering rack because the inside tread blocks on the front passenger side kept wearing into a sharp, jagged sawtooth pattern every single year. The dealership told him everything looked tight and kept selling him replacements. We got it up on the rack and dug deeper than a superficial inspection. Mechanically, the steering linkages were within spec, but the front passenger side lower control arm bushing had softened just enough under load to allow the wheel to shift dynamically outward whenever he braked or accelerated. The static alignment machine in the dealer's bay did not catch it because the vehicle was sitting perfectly still when they measured it. We replaced the worn rubber control arm bushings with heavy-duty upgraded units, performed a precise thrust angle alignment with zeroed-out toe specifications, and initiated the modified cross-rotation protocol. Total cost out the door was under $300. 6 months later, he rolled back into my bay for a routine checkup. The tread across the entire face of all 4 tires was wearing completely flat, perfectly uniform, down to the exact millimeter. The phantom structural defect did not exist. The vehicle just needed its dynamic geometry corrected. Now, you need to understand the major misconceptions and critical mistakes that drivers make when trying to address these issues on their own. The absolute biggest error I see people commit is attempting to correct underinflation wear by deliberately overinflating their tires past the recommended door jamb specification. They see the outer edges wearing down, so they pump the tire up to 45 or 50 pounds of pressure, thinking it will lift the edges off the ground and save them. This is incredibly dangerous. Overinflation turns your tire into a hard, rounded balloon. It reduces your physical contact patch down to a narrow strip right in the center of the tire, completely destroying your wet weather traction, increasing your braking distances significantly, and causing the center of your tread to blow out and wear down to the cords in record time. You cannot fix one structural deviation by introducing another. The second fatal mistake is buying cheap, ultra-hard compound tires under the false assumption that harder rubber lasts longer against mechanical misalignment. It does not. A bad alignment or a dead shock absorber will carve through a cheap, hard compound tire just as ruthlessly as it will a soft performance tire. The only difference is that you will be driving on a tire with terrible wet weather grip and an incredibly harsh ride quality while it happens. You must realize that the tire is nothing more than a mirror reflecting the health of the chassis beneath it. If you throw brand new rubber onto a truck with worn steering joints, sagging springs, or sloppy bushings, you are quite literally burning cash for entertainment. But what happens when you have fixed your habits, checked your alignment, set your pressures perfectly every single month, and you still notice a highly specific, deep, localized vibration building through the floorboards at exactly 65 miles per hour? That high-speed floorboard vibration at exactly 65 miles per hour is the final boss of tire maintenance, and conquering it unlocks the true long-term payoff of everything we just covered. When you master these 5 protocols, you are not just saving a few $100 at the local shop every couple of years. You are fundamentally rewriting the economic and operational reality of owning your vehicle. By forcing that rubber to wear completely flat and true across its entire face, you instantly unlock the maximum theoretical mileage out of every single dollar you invest in your chassis. You reclaim that missing 30 to 50% of tread life the industry counts on you losing, but the benefits ripple far beyond the rubber itself. A truck rolling on perfectly flat, evenly worn contact patches experiences dramatically less rolling resistance. That means your engine does not have to work nearly as hard to push that massive weight down the highway, which puts hard cash directly back into your wallet through optimized fuel economy. More importantly, you are protecting the expensive mechanical components upstream. When a tire wears unevenly, cups, or develops dynamic imbalances, it acts like a miniature jackhammer, sending high-frequency harmonic vibrations straight up the axle shafts, through the wheel bearings, and directly into your steering knuckles, tie rod ends, and control arm bushings. By maintaining a perfectly uniform footprint, you eliminate those destructive vibrations entirely, effectively doubling the lifespan of your factory wheel bearings and steering components. You gain absolute predictability, enhanced wet weather braking performance, and a truck that tracks as straight as an arrow at highway speeds without you constantly fighting the steering wheel. To truly lock in these gains for the next 100,000 miles, you need to integrate a few complementary, advanced habits into your regular garage routine. First, you must understand the critical difference between a standard static wheel balance and a dynamic road force balance. Standard balancing machines spin the wheel in mid-air to detect heavy spots in the assembly. A road force balancer, however, presses a large roller against the tread under thousands of pounds of simulated vehicle weight while it spins. This advanced diagnostic detects internal hard spots, shifting belt plies, and microscopic manufacturing variations in the rubber casing that a standard machine completely misses. Every single time you get a new set of tires mounted, or if you develop a persistent high-speed vibration that standard balancing cannot fix, explicitly demand a dynamic road force match mount balance. It ensures the tire and the wheel are perfectly synchronized under actual load conditions. Second, get into the habit of performing a visual tread read every single time you wash your vehicle or check the engine oil. Do not just look at the outside face of the tire from a distance. Turn the steering wheel all the way to the lock position so you can clearly see the entire inside edge of the front tread blocks. Take your bare hand and slide your palm firmly across the face of the tire in both directions, from front to back and from side to side. If your hand glides smoothly in one direction but catches on sharp, jagged edges moving the other way, you have caught a minor alignment drift or a rotation delay long before it has the chance to permanently ruin the casing. Third, pay close attention to your wheel wells after driving through heavy mud, deep snow, or gravel roads. Packed debris caked into the inner barrel of an aluminum wheel acts exactly like a massive, misplaced wheel weight. Just a few ounces of dried mud stuck to the inside of the rim will throw the entire assembly into a violent dynamic imbalance at highway speeds, mimicking a failed tire or a bent suspension component. Keep those inner barrels completely sprayed clean. Now, let us be completely transparent about the realistic trade-offs and engineering compromises you will encounter along the way. In the automotive world, you never get something for absolutely nothing. When you transition from a passive driver to an active manager of your truck's footprint, you have to accept certain physical realities. For example, executing a rigorous cross-rotation pattern every 5,000 miles means you will occasionally notice a very slight, temporary increase in tire road noise for the first 200 or 300 miles immediately following the service. This is completely normal. It is simply the tread blocks mechanically adjusting to their new rotational direction and adapting to the subtle differences in local brake caliper clearance and axle loading. Do not panic and assume the shop botched the job. Let the rubber settle into its new position, and the noise will fade as the footprint stabilizes. Additionally, if you drive a part-time four-wheel drive vehicle or a heavy truck with an aggressive, deep all-terrain or mud terrain tread pattern, maintaining uniform wear requires absolute vigilance. These deep, blocky tread designs are inherently prone to localized heel-and-toe wear because the individual rubber lugs flex significantly under acceleration and braking forces. If you choose to run an aggressive off-road style tire for aesthetic or utility reasons, you cannot afford to slack off on your monthly pressure checks or skip a single rotation schedule. The trade-off for that rugged capability and enhanced traction is a zero-tolerance policy for maintenance neglect. A highway terrain passenger tire might forgive you for skipping a rotation by a few thousand miles. An aggressive truck tire will punish your wallet instantly by locking in an irreversible cupping pattern that sounds like a turboprop airplane down the interstate. You are now fully equipped with the insider mechanics knowledge that separates the vulnerable consumer from the empowered driver. You no longer have to blindly accept premature tire failure as an unavoidable cost of ownership. You know exactly how to read the physical ledger written in the rubber. You understand the precise forces acting on your contact patch. And you know how to execute the fixes that keep your hard-earned cash out of the manufacturer's pockets. Stop treating your tires like an unpredictable mystery or a streak of bad luck. Take absolute command of your vehicle's maintenance. Grab a reliable pressure gauge, locate that driver's side door jam placard, and commit to auditing your chassis geometry regularly. You have the truth, you have the strategy, and you have the authority to pull your vehicle out of the endless cycle of premature replacement. Take control of your truck, read your tread, protect your investment, and dominate the road on your own terms.